What's going on, everyone? We got an interesting article here from GameStop, or they want to say EB Games, which I kind of find interesting, which is obviously much less. It says that gamers are buying less, and it is not just about the price, obviously. But obviously, this is not an article including Nintendo, because mostly when you think about Nintendo gamers, they buy a lot of Nintendo games. As we see here, this is connected to, zoom in for you guys. Commerce, game industry, Game Pass, game product manufacturer, PlayStation 5, Ubisoft Plus, Series X, and for Scar Gaming. Meaning that obviously the Xbox market has tanked this generation big time for people buying games. Well, of course, they go on Game Pass. The subscription model has popped up. Physical has took a significant hit this generation compared to last generation. Definitely when you think about the beginning of PS4, still was nice, you know what I mean? And Xbox One, people still bought games. Like much more than now, with Nintendo still obviously being added in with that always. And this generation, you have so much subscription model growth and so much subscription model focus. And most people choose that, like they're going to choose Netflix over Blu-rays and all that, because you could get all that content from one aspect. And when you think about that, obviously people on PlayStation still buy more games, but it is still less compared to certain aspects. And why you see so much growth compared to previous generations is not because of physical games and buying games, it's because of microtransactions in these free-to-play games, which is actually a problem. Because people are instead are spending money on cosmetics and all this stupid stuff instead of supporting really good video games. And then outside of that, you have food being insane to where, yeah, it's unreasonable. Prices of electronics obviously are going up soon, but that wasn't the problem. It was mostly food and gas and all this other stuff, man. People can't even afford a house either. All that type of stuff just gets ridiculous, and it's been a problem for a while. But it's only getting worse now. So gamers are not spending less, they are spending smarter. I don't know about that because you're overfeeding microtransaction games. No, that all depends. I would say they're more cautious about overspending compared to before, in a sense of a price difference. Definitely $70 games. There's not a whole lot of $80 games, so that's not really a huge issue. And if there is, yeah, that is an issue, obviously. Anything 80 would be an issue. But I mean, like, it's more 70 than anything, like by a mile. You know what I mean? There's barely any $80 games. I don't even know if there's even 5. But the thing is, though, is that a lot of people are going back. They play older games, and then some people be staying on those free-to-play games all day. They don't spend anything. So that has a lot to do with it. But we got an article to look at here, too. Going down, Yilong says, I want physical and I want the complete game. It's that simple. And Nintendo offers that for their first-party games. You know what I mean? But when you go to Xbox, it's like you're not going to get that. And that market definitely tanks, so that definitely does add into the ratio of what they're talking about here. That's why we have PlayStation 5, Series X. Ubisoft also died too, you know what I mean? They're not there. Their games used to sell a lot as well. When you think about all those tanks going on, along with Game Pass and all these subscriptions coming in, it definitely does. I mean, GameStop took a hit more than ever. Digital grew more than ever. So physical definitely took a hit, and Nintendo's still keeping that alive in a sense. The other ones not as much. And he says, if you won't offer that on launch, I'll shrug and wait 2 to 3 years until you are offering what I want, or I have lost interest by then. Either way, I'm not paying 70 to 80 for digital only or incomplete releases. I've always thought that if you're going to be doing digital only, you make more money. You don't have to pay Walmart, you don't have to pay Target, you don't have to pay Best Buy, you know what I mean? You don't have to pay any of them, and they don't get their cut, so digital should be cheaper. Minimum $10 cheaper. Digital games should be $59.99. Hell, I think even the Claire model is better for $49. This guy down here says, agreed, and if I can't get a full fat physical copy for my console of choice, usually Switch, I just buy a copy on Steam once it's on a few discount. I think people talked about that. Prices are getting crazy for now for new games, but not 16-bit era level crazy. So here's the article over here. And this is by John Scar. It says, games are getting more expensive, but something more interesting is happening. According to a new Boston consultant group, zoom in for you guys, report almost half of survey gamers say that they wait for discounts before buying and about a third will skip purchases if prices go up. It is a thing. People are now conditioned to wait on sales. Not that that's a bad thing, you know what I mean? Unless it's like a huge game, like, some PlayStation first party, and definitely Nintendo, because that's just instant, because they already know how they work. But you get what you pay for with them. That sounds like bad news for publishers, yet it feels less like people are spending less and more like they are spending smarter. Gaming has moved past impulse buys for many of us. When it comes to that, yeah, they are smarter. We read reviews, compare notes, and weigh our backlogs before opening up our wallets. And that also has a lot to do with hard real-life conditions as well. Services like Game Pass, Ubisoft Plus, PlayStation Extra, and Epic giveaways, plus Amazon giveaways, also changed how people look at value. Why drop full price for one game when you already have 10 untouched titles sitting in your library? We explored that idea in our editorial, Do Game Subscriptions Like Game Pass Devalue Games? And BCG's new data lines up with many of the points raised there. The takeaway feels pretty clear. Gamers are not pulling away from their hobby. They are becoming more selective. With pricier games, huge catalogs, and busy lives, a purchase has to feel worth the time as much as the money. That shift is shaping how and why we buy games today. That I like. The discount wait has become normal. Yeah, that's definitely true. Waiting for a discount was once something you did to stretch a tight budget. Now it is just how many of us buy games. BCG's finding that nearly half of gamers hold off until prices drop does not feel surprising. With so many releases stacking up, there is really a reason to pay day one pricing unless you are truly excited. And that's what I was saying. Digital storefronts made this behavior easier. Deals appear constantly, wishlists light up with notifications, and seasonal sales have been conditioned into our buying habits. Yeah, Steam did a good job with that for the longest. We wait for Black Friday, spring sales, or publisher promos before diving in. It has turned the idea of paying full price into an exception instead of a default. Because back then when there was no digital and physical was there, you were waiting on a used game, or if the price would go down. And you'd have to go there every single time to check, right? Until like the online, or you had your own phone to do that. And then, back then it was a lot harder to do that. It is also a response to uncertainty. Games launch big, but they do not always launch well. Early patches, balance adjustments, and content updates encourage waiting a bit. Why risk disappointment at $90 or $99? Oh, this must be like in Canada or something. When waiting a month could give you a lower price and a better version of the game. This trend does not point to gamers being cheap. It speaks to gamers being thoughtful. Paying full price needs justification now. Time, quality, and backlog pressure all factor into each purchase. That shift is reshaping how releases land and how we decide when to hit buy. Agreed. More than 75% of gamers say prices will heavily impact their purchase choices. About 65% of gamers have tactics to limit their spending. Please select how much you agree with the following statements. Price significantly influences my choice of brand, product, services. And like I said, I think with living conditions, it makes you weigh in on that more. The economy is worse now more than it's ever been. So I could imagine people having that type of thought process. But if everybody was filthy rich, do you think most people would care? No. But when you have that happening, it's something to think about. And then you think about something you could have that's going to last a long time. So that's pretty much what that is. And 28 strongly agree. I mean, this isn't a whole bunch of people. A lot of people waiting on discounts, but you're just looking at the general consensus. And I think this is definitely a big thing. Definitely outside of the Nintendo world, because most of them know how Nintendo works. So it's like, if you're going to get their game, it's going to be like that. But this is mostly for a bigger third-party perspective, because PlayStation and Xbox are more bigger third-party along with Steam. So we have to look at this from a third-party perspective. And that's why Ubisoft was definitely put in there. EA should have been put in there in a lot of their games, except, people are going to buy FIFA every year because that's FIFA. But outside of that, all those other games are not selling nowhere near as well. And we know that. You keep on seeing the same games pop up. So subscriptions quietly changed how we see value. Subscriptions did not just give people more games, they reshape what a single game is worth. When you can try dozens of titles for the cost of one monthly fee, full price purchases start to feel optional. You get used to sampling games instead of committing to them, and it shifts your expectations for what a purchase should deliver. We explored this in our Do Game Subscriptions Like Game Pass Devalue Games. Well, I've already done stuff about this. Editorial and BCG's findings back that convention up. People are not rejecting premium games. They are comparing them to a library of content they already have access to. If something does not stand out or feel urgent, it waits into a discount or slides into the backlog. yeah, if they're comfortable with a whole subscription model in front of them, then yeah. And if you have a lot of time and you just smash through the whole subscription model, then you might start looking for sales and stuff like that. Because it's like, okay, I can see this being an amazing value when if for people who have not touched it, same thing on the plus aspect. But when you've smashed through everything in there and you're sitting around waiting, which is not a common thing for everybody, but you guys get what I mean, then you're just sitting there looking around and you're hoping for something that may go on sale that you're interested in or something new to come out. If it's not going to be on a subscription model, like because a lot of people are buying third-party games and first-party games can't keep releasing 24/7. So that's definitely a thing. And it does condition people to not buy games. So, I mean, I get what they're saying, but there's also something to that obviously matters because the majority of the gaming industry is not subscription model. That would be Netflix. They still buy games, but they buy them on sale. So it's not just Game Pass either. Ubisoft Plus, PlayStation Extra, Epic's weekly giveaways, Steam bundles, and cloud libraries, plus Amazon's free giveaway, all contribute to a sense that games are abundant. But it's literally also with some people, it's about what they want. It's not about giving them a bunch of stuff they don't want to play or they're just going to ignore it. We have to factor that in too. When abundant rises, urgency drops. You can still buy the game you love, but the impulse fades because you know you have choices elsewhere. But another good thing on the other end of the sword is that you might be able to try out something you might not have ever tried out. So that can work too. But for the most part, the bigger aspect is that's actually what I want though. And it's not on a subscription model, so I want to get that. This new value perception does not kill big releases, but it does challenge them. A $90 or even $99 now has to justify both its price and its place if you're limited free time. That is a higher bar than gaming had a decade ago, and it shows how people decide what to buy and when. Yeah, I mean, you see these things right here. Consumers' cost per hour of entertainment by medium and format for major categories as of 2025. So you got music purchase, movie purchase, premium, video streaming, free to play. Ownership, access. People do want to own things. Typical inflation-adjusted price of a standard edition. You get the idea of Nintendo keeping it alive too, and people still buy their games. They give them ownership. AAA full over the past 20 years. 2026, we kind of get this idea here. Projected, nominal, they're trying to say. But it definitely was higher in 2010. But we know what was going on at that time. It was insane when it came between Nintendo, the DS, 256 million install base, PS3 doing what it's doing, along with 360 as well. Yeah, I mean, and the inflation, The backlog era is real. It is hard to talk about spending habits without mentioning backlogs. Everyone seems to have one now. A pile of untouched Steam games, a digital shelf waiting on a console. Yeah, definitely get busy. Or a cloud queue where curiosity sparked faster than commitment. BCG's data makes our quiet reality a little louder. People are not short of games. They are short on time. Yeah, that's very true. Backlogs change how we buy. When you know you've already had 5 or 10 games waiting, hitting purchases on one another feels indulgent. I agree on that. That's definitely a thing. It can even feel stressful, so waiting for discounts becomes easier. Skipping games becomes easier. You tell yourself you will get to them eventually, and by that time you do, they might be cheaper or even included in a subscription. Yeah, this is not a sign of fading interest. It is a sign of abundance. Games become easier to access across platforms and services, and that abundance makes us selective. The backlog era is not about hoarding. It is about choice paralysis. When everything is available, you start to pick carefully, sometimes too carefully. The backlog did not make us less passionate, it made us more deliberate, and publishers are starting to feel that shift in how they plan releases, price drops, and post-launch updates. Yeah, that's very true. Studios feel this shift too. Publishers are adjusting to this new reality, even if they do not always say it outright. Longer sales cycles, extend discount windows, and heavier post-launch marketing are not accidents. They are a response to gamers buying later, not earlier. True, a game's second or third month can matter more than its first week, which is a pretty big change for how things used to work. Live service models and season passes are also exist partly because of this behavior. If a studio can keep people returning much later, it helps smooth out slower initial sales. Deluxe editions, loyalty perks, and pre-order bonuses all try to pull urgency back into the buying decision. Sometimes it works, sometimes people just wait anyways. Yeah, I mean, that is definitely very true for a lot of stuff. So, I mean, we kind of get the idea here. I prefer live service games to single player games, or I prefer accessing games via subscription or buying individual games. That actually depends here. But I think we're going to find some things here back and forth. And when it comes to live service, that just depends if people are into it or not. But obviously, you could just straight up get on it but obviously they want to charge you a fortune too for other things in there that I don't like. Definitely got you games. So we kind of see that idea here: 29, 22, 19, 26, 19, 23. Kind of like, you know, back and forth, and it depends on what gen you're looking at as well. I think anybody could like a good live service game if you can have a good time with people. So spending smarter does not mean caring less, they're saying. Yeah, we get the idea here. So yeah, this is a pretty good article. Let me know what you guys think about this. Honestly, it does give you an idea about what the hell's going on right now and what people think compared to like the market crisis that's going on and how things are going to be next year. That, I mean, that's not going to be so much video games because that's software. It's going to be more about a hardware crisis coming next year that I don't really like. Because it's interfering with organic growth in gaming, and I do not like it one bit. But hell, what are we going to do about it except hope that that AI bubble pops in their face and they realize what's most important, and that's keeping a balance. This reminds me of the live service goose chase, but on a far worse degree. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is a good article. Glad to share this with y'all. Peace out, y'all. Have a great day.